Hello everyone, so for those of you that don't know me, I'm the surgical doctor. I hope you're having a lovely day. Today I'm going to be discussing my top 5 TV favourite female doctor heroines. This was a really interesting thing to think about because at first I thought it would be really easy, but then the more I thought about it, the more problematic many of them became. I wanted to think about people that were really inspirational and non-problematic, but actually, you know, most of them on my list have been sleeping with their boss, and that's not particularly representative of the experience of female doctors across the world. You know, we generally try to avoid doing that. So this is not a completely problem-free list, but I've done my best. So please let me know in the comments who your favourites are, if you agree or disagree with any of mine. So let's start off with my number 5. So number 5 is really problematic in some ways in the fact that I just kind of, she really irritates me, and you'll be like, why is she on your list then? And I'll tell you why. So number 5 is Elliot from Scrubs. So you probably don't realise Scrubs is quite old now. I think it's at least a decade old. And the only reason Elliot is on the list is for one line that she delivers in the entire show. Everything else about her is really problematic. But there is sometimes a real thread of realism that runs through Scrubs in terms of like the experience of a junior doctor. And there's this one, so in Scrubs, they're always trying to push Elliot to do what they call female specialities. These are areas that people, you know, imagine all lady doctors want to work in: obs and gynae and pediatrics and GP to an extent. And they're always trying to push Elliot to work in obs and gynae or pediatrics or whatever. And she's like, no, I'm internal medicine. I don't want to do pediatrics. I'm internal medicine, and that's what I want to do. And I love that she stood up for that. And I guess the thing about these female heroines is that they are in a position where they can actually change the world for us, because people grow up and they watch, and it changes their perceptions really of what we're like. And that's what, in that one line, I guess that's what Elliot from Scrubs does. She says, I don't want to be confined to what you consider to be female specialities. I'm internal medicine, and that's why Elliot from Scrubs is my number 5. Number 4, okay, so are you on board with me so far? So number 4 is Cali Torres from Grey's Anatomy. So it's really difficult not to make this entire list from Grey's Anatomy, and I think that's because the Grey's Anatomy women are just written so much better than a lot of the other shows. So I kind of considered some of the ladies from House, like Dr. Cuddy's fairly awesome, and you know, there was some other kind of shows that I considered, but the women in Grey's are written just so much better, and I think we relate to them more easy. So Cali, you know, she's an orthopod to start off with. This is an area of medicine that's often been considered to be a boys' speciality. I was talking to someone the other day who has been a nurse for a long time, and she was over 20 years, and when she was training, you know, she remembers people saying, you can't do orthopedics if you're a lady because you're just not strong enough to, you know, to move the limbs and move all the tools and things like that. And Cali really smashes that. You know, Cali is such a cool heroine. She's like the girl next door. She's really bubbly. She's the kind of person you wish is your friend, and you wish you were as cool as she was. She's compassionate, and she's passionate, and she's so wonderful and ingenious and intelligent, and she goes into orthopedics and she makes it her own. And I think a generation of young women grew up seeing Cali, you know, crusading through orthopedics, and I think that's really inspiring and wonderful. Number 3, also from Grey's Anatomy, so there are a couple from Grey's on this list, and I apologise for that. Bailey, the Nazi from Grey's Anatomy also. So Miranda Bailey makes it to number 3 on this list because she's just such an inspiring woman. You know, she's really in command of what she does. You know, they call her the Nazi. She's supposed to be ferocious, but actually we see such a softer side of Bailey. She's the one that really cares for them all, and yet she's such a badass surgical practitioner. You know that she's good at what she does. She experiences her moments of uncertainty, but she deals with them. And she's the one that goes on to kind of run the hospital because she has all of these organizational skills. She's the one, for someone like me, who manages to do it all. She's doing the mother thing, she's doing the surgeon thing, and she's doing the leadership thing. And she doesn't do it all seamlessly. She has moments of despair. She has moments of failure. And that's great to see, and that's really inspiring to see someone grappling with what I would consider to be modern issues. You know, can you be a mother and be a surgeon? Can you be a surgeon and, you know, be a surgical leader and be a mother? And she does this, and we see her all the way through her journey, and that's wonderful. Okay, so number 2, also from Grey's Anatomy, you're probably thinking, is it Meredith Grey? And the answer is no. I think that specific Grey's Anatomy is obviously quite an old show now. It's been on since I was a teenager, and a lot of these shows, whilst I mean Grey's is inclusive in terms of you've got a lot of different ethnicities that are in the cast in Grey's, but actually the whole of the show is linchpinned around what is effectively a privileged white woman. And I actually find Meredith's character one of the least interesting on the show. She's not as interesting as Cali. She isn't as interesting as Bailey, and she's not as interesting as number 2 on this list. And I had to think really hard about who's going to be number 2 and who's going to be number 1, because they're both so awesome and they both affected me in such ways, but I think number 1 just tipped it over the balance. So number 2 is Christina Yang, and she is queen of the Grey's ladies for me. And I asked this question on YouTube, on Instagram as well, as to who your favourites were, and you said people like Arizona Robbins. Christina Yang came up a lot, and she is my number 2 because she's so focused, and she really is like just killing it in terms of being a surgeon. And I think, I mean, obviously I said I've been watching Grey's, I'm not sure what year Grey's started, but I was a teen, so, you know, I was introduced to Christina Yang in my formulaic years, really. And she really introduced me to the concept of a woman being just such a badass surgeon and being so focused. And she is the one who kind of made it okay to say, my career comes first, and I'm doing this, and I'm going to be good at this, and I'm not going to apologise. And she's also the kind of role model that teaches you that, you know, you don't actually have to smile all the time. You don't have to apologise for being good. Like Christina Yang, she pulls no punches. You know, people say to her all the time, oh, you're beautiful. She doesn't do this modest derogatory thing that sometimes we get caught up in. She's like, yes, I know I'm beautiful. Tell me I'm brilliant instead, you know. And I love that about her. And I think about her sometimes when I'm, you know, pushing myself forward in surgery, or about to do something that, you know, I'm a bit nervous about. So in terms of like learning surgical skills, when we learn surgical skills, often, you know, in the operating theatre, you're doing it in front of a consultant and 2 registrars, and there's that moment of being like, oh, I'm going to look like a complete idiot. And in surgery, you really have to take those moments of putting yourself out there, because that's how you learn and grow. And I often think to myself, you know, what would Christina do if she was here with me right now? And she would be in there, and she would be learning, and she would be saying, teach me this, because I'm going to be the best. And I think about that a lot, and I think it's one of the things that drives me forward. So number one on my list, none of you on Instagram suggested this person, which I found quite surprising. But then, am I older than my average Instagram follower? That's the question. So here we go. So number 1 is, of course, the massive TV icon that is Dana Scully. So maybe Dana Scully escapes some of your notice because she's not from a medical show, and we forget that she's a doctor. In some ways, the fact that she's a doctor is incidental to the plot of the X-Files, and the X-Files is obviously coming up to being 20 years old. 30 years old. Okay, so the X-Files is coming up to being 30 years old. Okay, I didn't realise that. I had no idea. I feel old now. The reason Dana Scully kicked so much bum is because she was for me, she was the female doctor on TV when I was growing up. And she was just so convicted and so fantastic. I always got the sense that she was this, you know, amazing doctor that was really starting off at the beginning of her career, and yet she had the ability to step away from being a doctor and try something else. And she approaches everything in the X-Files in the way that you imagine she approaches things in medicine, which is with conviction, but she always looks for the evidence. She comes to a rational place, and she is always she's hardworking and determined and ambitious. And I just kind of grew up just thinking that she was completely wonderful and inspiring. And she really was, for me, she really was the one that told me that I could be a doctor in the first place. And that's why when I was kind of weighing up Christina Yang versus Dana Scully, it's Dana Scully. Christina Yang taught me what type of doctor I wanted to be. Dana Scully taught me that I could be a doctor in the first place, and that is why she is my number one. So that is my top 5 list. Please let me know in the comments what you think. Do you agree? Would you knock any off? Would you add any on? Do you completely disagree with my list, or do you love my list? Let me know. Have a lovely day. Thank you. Bye.